piano time.
Welcome back to the Enjoy the Walk podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Dante, I don't know, we talked about a little earlier this week, the difference between carry options or even walking options, whether it was a stand bag, a Sunday bag, or a push cart.
Push cart mafia.
I think we might be a little biased on today's episode, but we're bringing on an innovative take on the push cart. You mentioned last episode you had a click gear and kind of all the attachments that go along with that. I've worked in bag rooms, my entire life before I headed off to college as a kid, and they're just clunky. They're notoriously clunky, tough to store. And who we're about to bring on has kind of, I think, revolutionized that and taken a whole different spin on it. So excited to have CEO and founding partner of Walker Trolleys, Brad Payne, joining us from Austin, Texas. Brad, how are things going in Texas?
We're just starting to get hot. It's starting to get in the 90s, so it's definitely summertime here. Things are going fantastic, and I can't thank you guys enough for having me on today.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. Boy, if that easterly wind could bring some of that warm weather our way on the East Coast, that would be beautiful.
Yeah, we have plenty of heat, and it's only going to get hotter, which, with the push cart mafia and preferring to walk the game, you need to get started early in Austin in the summertime if you're going to play golf. The 7:30 tee time is very crucial. To being able to walk and get out of the heat by the time it's, 102 or so with humidity. So,
Yeah, that's it almost becomes coveted to get those early morning tee times just to save yourself the sweat and the heartache later in the day.
Yeah, I'm an early riser anyway, and I just prefer dew sweeping. I mean, that's just a good way to play golf when you're first off and you've got no one in front of you and you can get out of there in 3 hours and get back, get some work done. That's my preferred way to play. But, the sunset evening round is also pretty magical with that golden hour sunset coming in and coming through trees and kind of just lighting up the course. That's also a pretty great time to play.
Yeah, I think you're preaching to the choir. Dante and I both like to get out early and, like you said, do sweep a little bit. And, as Instagram always lets us know, that golden hour is something to be, messed with as well. But let's get into, you talked about your love and passion for walking and, how you like to play the game. Where did that all start? Where did you kind of first get hooked on the game of golf?
So my dad was the one that got me into the game when I was a little kid. He passed away in 2011, but he was a +1 cap up until the day he died. He played kind of, in men's games. We belonged to a bevy of courses across the time that I was growing up, and played Atlanta junior golf in Atlanta, where I'm from. And what was interesting about that is my dad had a sales job kind of all growing up, so he was able to take me to all the tournaments, and they would have 40 tournaments or so throughout the summer. And I'd always go through the list of tournaments, and I'd always pick the most exclusive private courses on the schedule every year. It'd be Atlanta Athletic Club, Atlanta Country Club, but we didn't live anywhere near any of those courses. So my dad would have to get up and take me for 7:30 a.m. tee time, an hour and 20 minutes away, play a 9-hole round, and you have to come back and pick me up and take me home. So, he was a trooper, but he understood why I wanted to play those courses, because I wouldn't have another opportunity. But he was definitely, kind of like, come on, Brad, can we not play some that are closer around the house?
Shout out to all parents for junior golf, because I did the same thing to my parents growing up. We lived about, I'd say, 2 hours from the Philadelphia area, and a lot of the Philly courses popped up on like the junior golf scene for the Philadelphia section of the junior PGA at the time, and they would play some just beautiful courses. And I was like, come on, Dad, I'm never going to get to play those courses. And sure enough, every time my dad would wake up, 4:35 a.m. and get me out to Philly for those early morning tee times. So, shout out to those golfer parents out there, because they're the real troopers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely a shout out to those.
Now you talked a little bit. You said he was in the Atlanta area. Did your dad ever, run across the likes of like, yeah, I think Bobby Jones was in the Atlanta area, or any of his kind of family or friends? Was there any connection there between, his love for the game and maybe the Bobby Jones era of golf?
No, my dad kind of took up golf late in life. He was an athlete his whole life. So he probably took up golf maybe the late 70s, and kind of took it up and got hooked really quickly, and was a good player his whole life. He always had a dream of playing on the senior tour, but we all know that a star on the PGA Tour, that's not an easy thing to do. But I know he did play with like Joe Estes sometimes. Alan Doyle was a big guy in Georgia amateur, and also did some stuff on the national scene, I think in like the 80s. Few guys like that, but nothing kind of that far back.
I had to ask. You never know
Yeah,
the roads it might lead down, and just Atlanta's got a storied history, so I figured we'd check it out.
Well, I always get asked, because my name's Brad Payne, do I know Billy Payne? Or was he my father or anything? And I have to say that, I wish he was an uncle, because I'm sure I would have played Augusta more than 0 times. But, he was a big fixture in Atlanta, and, brought the Olympics, and chairman of Augusta. And so he was kind of the man in the state of Georgia for a while.
Yeah, boy, I think we would have found our way down to interview you in person if that was the case, that you were family members.
Yeah. I would use that invitation generously. I would take everybody and anybody that I knew to Augusta.
As I hope you would, because I think we all would do the same if we had the inside access.
Absolutely.
Dante and I talk to a lot of people in this podcast, and it seems to be, whether it's a mother or a father, it seems to be that's the way a lot of us start playing the game. Now, you said he was a plus handicap, and you got involved early with junior golf. How did that transition into like high school and college, and even afterwards? Did you play a lot of competitive golf through the years?
Yeah, I played in high school. I wouldn't say I was good, or I probably played number 4 or so on my team throughout my high school years. I had a buddy who played number 1, a buddy that played number 2, and they were kind of scratch, even par shooters, and so kind of going to college. Went to the University of Georgia. They have a great course there, but it's kind of one of those kind of colleges where it's really easy to lose touch with the game, if you know what I mean. I mean, between football and bars and things like that, it's there's a lot of distraction. So I would say I actually kind of lost touch with the game a little bit through college, and then kind of in my young professional days, kind of got back into it, playing with my dad and going on family vacations and stuff like that. So, but yeah, early high school golf was important, but also played baseball, also played football, swam, did a whole bunch of stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. Heck, Dante and I went to a small Division III school, and even then, we saw a lot of people like, man, I didn't pick up the game as much as what I did, as like before I get into college. So I can only imagine at a big SEC school how easily it just gets put in the background for all the activities that are going on.
I go back to think of it, and I had so much free time, especially my like spring semester senior year, to where I could have gone out and like played golf or done a lot of stuff, but I was exhausted from lacrosse practice. Well, exhausted, as some would say, and then air quotes here. And then I'm just sitting there like thinking about the days just playing COD all day. I'm like, damn, I just like missed out on all this time. But I wouldn't be here today if I didn't miss that time out. So,
well, you're thinking of Call of Duty. I'm thinking of like backyard barbecues and keg parties, but
that's it.
Each their own.
Those were in there as well.
Those are crucial in college. You got to get the full experience.
Going to a big SEC. I mean, my passion is University of Georgia. I mean, Georgia football is just if you ever get a chance, go to Athens. There's 100 bars in the downtown 6-block square area. It's amazing. 100,000 people on football Saturdays. I would suggest, especially if you went to kind of smaller D3 schools in the Northeast, that you need to go down and go to an LSU, a Georgia, an Alabama football game at some point. Like that just has to be on the bucket list.
I've heard that over and over again. I'm a huge Big Ten fan, big Penn State Nittany Lion fan, and time and time again, people always say SEC is just a little different. It's cut from a different cloth than Big Ten football. So might have to make that trip sometime.
Yeah, probably not this year, but maybe after COVID and all that's over.
I mean, cross our fingers that we can make that trip down the road. Goodness, I hope sometime sooner rather than later. But let's talk post-college. You went to Georgia. After you graduated, sometime down the road, you ended up landing a gig at Apple. How did working at Apple lead you to kind of the innovative side of things in looking down the road to Walker Trolleys?
Yeah, I think it's mostly kind of related to kind of how Apple designs products. So if you think about Apple and you always first of all think of Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs is notoriously famous for not using focus groups or designing by committee or things like that. It's the goal is to create kind of the simplest, easiest to use product for customers that kind of wows them and has these amazingly simple to use features. And so that really kind of and when you think about simple, making something complex look simple is also incredibly hard to do. Like, creating the iPhone was incredibly hard to make it look that simple and easy to use. They could have had buttons and they could have had, it could have just been some kind of BlackBerry clone, but to use, touch screen and everything else. I mean, all of that was incredibly innovative. So I think my time at Apple, that's kind of the way I think of, how I thought about, kind of product design. And then I think also, the customer experience is also incredibly important at Apple. It's about creating a product that wows people, having great customer service on the back end, just really creating this whole experience around the customer. And then, branding as well. Kind of the way Apple brands their products is a lot of kind of less is more. It's not, always kind of all these flashy things with, bikini babes or, whatever. But it's, kind of clean, simple branding, that really talks, clearly about what the product's about. And I would say, I didn't have anything to do whatsoever with designing the iPhones. And there are so few people that actually do. And they, are very, very highly compensated and work in a very small team. But, there's kind of an ethos around Apple and a secrecy, and, you can't help but kind of feel those things that Apple stands for as a company, as an employee. And so I would say that those really kind of geared into, what the Walker Trolley is all about, and kind of building Walker Trolleys into a company, and kind of think about how we brand and how we market, how we think about the customer experience, how we think about the product design. I would say that Apple had a huge, influence on all of those things with Walker Trolleys.
That's really interesting too. I think the one biggest thing people always take away, or maybe miss, I should say, is like you said, how hard it is to design something that looks so simple, that acts so simple, that's almost like from the minute you pick it up, it's like you were meant to have it, and there's no kind of gap between learning how to use it. Rolling from Apple into Walker Trolleys, obviously you had a background in golf and you grew up in the game. Why a push cart? Out of everything that you could choose to design, why a push cart? Why the golf industry?
Yeah, so I belonged to a course in San Francisco, Presidio Golf Course. We had a bag room that was filled with every push cart. We had clip gears and caddy techs and bag boys and pretty much everything. And, you kind of show up Saturday morning for the game. You didn't own your own push cart. You just grab one out. The guys would give you one, and then you go out and play. So I probably used every model under the sun. And there were things I liked and there were things I didn't like about using each one. But I think what I kind of came down to was a couple things I didn't like, and this is kind of our thesis on kind of the market. It's just that they're all very similar. They all kind of chase after a similar goal, and that's to create, the smallest folding push cart out there. And I think that's fantastic. I mean, I think that's a very important thing for a lot of people. But I don't think that's the most important thing for everybody. For instance, all the people that were at our club and storing their push carts in our bag room, why would they care how small it folds? Like they don't take it in their cart, they don't take it in their car at home. They don't put it in their garage. Really all that they care about is, does it work on the golf course and what's the experience like? And so, it wasn't really until a trip to Scotland, actually about 2 years ago right now, I think was when I went. I had some friends over that have a house in Dornoch. So we went up to Dornoch, played Aurora, Goldsby, Cruden Bay, Old Course, North Berwick, Carnoustie, Prestwick, did it all. And, used a push cart at a lot of those places. Also used some caddies, primarily used a push cart at a lot of those places. And, you're kind of walking down the fairways of Royal Dornoch or Prestwick or Carnoustie, and, you're using a neon yellow push cart that's got a lot of molded plastic pieces. And I was just kind of like, this golf course is 200 years old, or this golf course is 150 years old. And I was like, this just doesn't fit with kind of the aura of these great golf courses. And so, when I kind of came back to the United States, fortunately for me, my brother-in-law was an industrial designer. He'd been designing baby strollers for the last 10 years, him and his partner, and he was also a college D3 golfer. So he had a background in golf also. And so we just kind of thought, hey, could we design something that's kind of different? Kind of something that, if push carts had been invented in the 1920s, what would kind of a modern version of that 1920s push cart look like? Took inspiration from, the roadsters of the 1920s, the English prams with the four wheels and the big wire, wire spoked wheels. Detroit bikes make some really cool classic 1920s bikes. And so that's kind of where the whole thing started, was just kind of, we want to create a push cart that's great on the golf course. It's simple to use, uses premium materials, and then also folds really, into a compact size. I mean, we couldn't just this monstrosity that didn't fold or something, like that. I mean, people still need to be able to fit it in their trunk of their car. But, maybe it doesn't fit in a Miata, sorry. But if you have a truck or a sport utility or a crossover, you're fine. And so we just designed the product, to be the best that we could on the golf course. And that's kind of where we started. And I think we kind of took a different approach than maybe a lot of the things that are on the market. And, I hope that kind of comes across in the design. But that was kind of where we started.
Well, I think there was a lot in there, and I want to touch on a few things that I loved. The first thing I think, and Dante, I'd love to get your opinion on this too. I think every course sees just a plethora of different kind of fold out, 6-7 axis, different kind of, push carts that, this tire folds out and that tire folds out. And like you said, it's trying to collapse so small. And I don't know, Dante, what, the click gear that you own, how small does that thing go?
It's pretty bulky. So I have a Hyundai Elantra 2018. Chunk's pretty big, but it's kind of like in a mushroom shape, right? There's like the back end part of the trunk is on the short stem aspect, and then it comes out around like the top of the mushroom, and then that's the widest. You put the push cart in there, you're pretty much taking up 100% of that stem area. So it's pretty bulky, but kind of just going off of this and what you're talking about like all other types of push carts, and the simplicity of this one is all the other ones I've been through. I'm on my third push cart. I play in a course that's it's kind of like very sandy. So I had ones with push buttons, and they had like 3 or 4 different buttons that I had to push in, and it was a tri wheel, and then the wheel got like from constant folding in and out. the buttons got lodged with like the sand, and the buttons got stuck, and then that broke, and then the front end wheel, I pushed a button and the sand got into where the 360 wheel just got stuck, and then that actually broke off, and then eventually I went to a different brand, which was like Click Clear and all that. It's just, there's just so many contraptions with these sometimes, and I'm just like looking at this, and it's just simple.
That's what I'm so glad you went there, because that's exactly where I was headed with it too. Was like, my dad and I growing up, we used to walk all the time, and we would have like the old style, kind of like you said, just all plastic, and then we had some of the newer style too. And we had like at one point, I remember the back of my garage had like a push cart graveyard of just push carts that didn't work. Things were broken. We're using tires off of this one to fix this one. And it was a mess, because while it's nice to have it fold up in the back of your car so small, there becomes so many pivot points and different little levers and actions that just after wear and tear, and like you said, Dante, sand, water, dirt, whatever, getting in there, they're not going to work after a while. And it just boils down to, like, do you want that kind of convenience and you're buying a new one every year? Or do you want something kind of like, obviously we haven't gotten to, see one in person or have, our hands on one, but it just looks like this doesn't have that many points of like concern, as opposed to a lot of those other really high foldable elements in the competition. And I think it's really cool too. And I think it just goes back to maybe your time at Apple, but just, I think, your brother's experience in industrial design too. It just is simple. And I think that speaks to the larger masses when it comes to, all right, I can just pull it out, one pull, and there it is. So like, I want to move into the design process. How did you guys start, and how many like prototypes did you guys go through to finally find out where you guys are at now to say, you know what, we're going to move to production with this thing?
Yeah, so we started in August 2018. Took a couple months to actually kind of formalize the design, kind of get ready to start looking a partner. My brother-in-law obviously had some connections, in Asia with his experience, working in baby stroller design. We chose to kind of go a different route, which looking back on it wasn't necessarily the best idea. We used kind of a sourcing company, which is, you kind of get what you pay for, and you kind of never know what you're going to get. And so we made a trip over to China, and we were in China, we were in Vietnam, we were in a couple other countries, touring these kind of small mom and pop factories. And I was kind of like, this is just not going to work. And so we ended up going with a company. They're a global manufacturer based in Asia, actually based all over the world. They're the world's largest producer of baby strollers. So they really know how to make folding things with wheels. It's kind of the way that I say it. Once we got hooked up with them, it was a much better process. Took us, I think, 4 prototypes kind of from May of last year through the PGA show of this year, January. That's when we kind of wrapped up tooling, and we've had kind of, I think, 3 post-tooling samples, and then the final pre-production sample comes next week, which is the kind of golden sample, final sample. This is what everybody that ordered a trolley is going to get. They're going to make X number of these and, keep churning them out. And so that's kind of where we are now.
That's crazy to me. And I know you just said it was an interesting process. It's like how you first go about, obviously you had the background kind of, in with the baby strollers, but even then, you still took the trips around to like you said, mom and pop shops and ended up with a larger producer. But it always kind of blows my mind to how you narrow it down to, yeah, that's it, to like put your trust in some manufacturer to put your design that you have in your head. And obviously, many iterations of drawings and everything like that. But to say, yes, that's the guy we're going to go with, or the company we're going to go with, because, that's your baby. That's, when you trust someone to make it the way you want it, you're putting your life on the line, I feel like, a little bit. And, talk us through the materials that you guys ended up, locking down.
Yeah. So So the way we thought about the design, I think this kind of goes back to something we were talking about earlier. Is, a lot of companies on the market, they use a lot of plastic. Plastic's cheap. It's easy to use. It's easy to mold. It's not as good as aluminum. And that's something that, we felt pretty strongly about, is that, within the central hub that we have, is that it's all aluminum throughout the central hub. It adds a little bit of weight, but it also adds a lot of strength, a lot of stability. And so I was adamant that that will always be aluminum, just because if we're going to create a quality premium product, we're not going to use, plastic parts that could easily break, especially not in the most crucial part. And, we thought about the product from the beginning, is that we wanted this to be, a premium push cart. And so we took a lot of inspiration from the Up Baby Vista and the Up Baby Cruise, and they have these gorgeous full grain leather handles. So we've got, this beautiful perforated, full grain leather handle that, feels different than any other push cart you've ever used, because, you're using a leather handle. And then we thought about kind of what's happened in golf, in areas where they're making, companies like Seamus and McKinsey golf bags are using canvas, and they're using wax canvas, and they're creating these beautiful products. And so, we decided that our storage accessories are going to be made of wax canvas. It's completely different than anything else that's on the market. Most of it is molded plastic or netting or something else. But we wanted to create a bag that, is kind of, I hate to say a work of art. That's a little, obtuse. And, a little bit of hyperbole, but, it's a quality product that's, made of wax canvas. It's unique. It's water resistant. We can customize it umpteen million ways. Like if you wanted like a pirate flag on yours, or, Dante, you wanted camo or Hawaiian or something, we could make you a one of a kind bag that could be on your trolley that, maybe nobody else has. Down the road, we can put your initials on it, all these kind of things. And you could kind of really customize your trolley. Maybe you have 3 Seamus head covers or something like that, and you want to, kind of match those fabrics on your push cart, storage accessories. We could do something like that down the line. I think that, that's kind of where we come from materials, is, let's a bit different than what everybody else does.
Yeah, it was really neat to see that. And I'm just, my mind's blowing a little bit that we didn't cross paths at the PGA show this last year. But I mean, the enormity of that place is just, it's easy to not see everyone during that week. But guys, you did mention, we did get to see, we interviewed McKenzie. We stopped by Seamus and checked out all their products. And I think it's really neat that, you kind of took that approach, because it's where golf's headed, I think, is back to that just overall personalization, that like, yes, you can still have a product that everyone's getting the base model, but then you can put your upgrade on it and get your own touch, your own feel. And I think it ties in so well with the leather handle you have, the way the wax canvas carrier. It's awesome to see that, you offer that little bit of kind of just personality to what else would just be, and no offense to the product, but it would just be an aluminum cart. So it's awesome to see there's little added bonuses in there to kind of make it your own, because, I, for one, love the leather handle. I think that, like I said before, we haven't been able to feel one or touch it, but I just can imagine that is so pleasant to just push around all day long. It's not that hard plastic, that, uncomfortable feel to get your hand on a leather product like that off the bat. I could just only imagine makes for just a really comfortable experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, it's, I look at a company like Up Baby. You guys, and probably your audience, has no clue who I'm talking about, unless they have 2- and 3-year-old children. But it's one of the #1 selling stroller brands in the country. It's $849 up to $1,500. But people kind of grab that leather handle, and they know that they're pushing kind of something different. It's such a soft, different feel. And I feel like touch and feel are just great, great senses, especially when you're going to spend 4 hours, 3.5 hours, 5 hours, whatever your round's going to be. You're always touching that handle. So it's a contact point that you'll always have with the Walker Trolley. And to make that a different feel and something that, people are going to like, I think that, that was one of the kind of crucial points of the design that we came up with, that let's differentiate ourselves in those kind of small ways.
For sure. And it's definitely, I mean, you can take one look at it and know that there's nothing else like it on the market. I think that just right away is obvious. But then, like you said, the tactile feel of it and just the little nooks and crannies of it, you start to look at it and you say, well, wow, there's actually way more than what meets the eye when you first kind of walk up to these. And I think that's what's really neat about it too, is kind of the more you take a look around, from the detail in the wheels to, like you just described, all the detail in the carriers and the printing of everything. It just, every corner you turn on this thing, it just looks like there's more to be found in the detail that's added into it. And it's really impressive that, like you mentioned, I think when we first got on, was the simplicity, at first glance is just like, well, wow, that is super simple, super sleek. But then you get into it and there's a ton of components that makes it look that simple.
Yeah. I mean, like one thing that you guys, or two things you guys probably don't notice even by just looking at the pictures, is so the straps that strap in the bag, super simple. They're basically canvas belts. There's no reason to kind of reinvent the wheel. Belts have worked for centuries to keep people's pants up and, fasten things. It's fine. But there's little, golfers in it, that are the center of our logo. At the top, where the leather handle is, there's a little piece of plastic casing that has a logo of the golfer, and that's basically to protect the leather. It's kind of looks cool when you look down and you can see the Walker Trolley logo, but its purpose is really that when you close it up and you fold it and it's sitting on your garage, the handle's not resting on the leather; it's resting on that little piece of plastic, so that you don't scratch up the leather on your concrete or on your garage or kind of the other, anywhere else that you might be.
Well, that's really neat, and I think it's so cool because there's so many components of just any designed piece in general that a lot of times people are, either think, oh, well, that's not really serving a purpose, or they say, well, that space could have been used for something, and instead it's just kind of empty space. And it seems like everywhere you turn, like you just described, something's meant to be there for a reason, and it's meant to have a purpose, which is really neat. And I think just as kind of someone with a design background, really, really appreciate that effort, because
that's right. You do. Yeah, you do have a design background.
Speaking of design, speaking of simplicity, and kind of speaking of space, of just like the past conversation, one thing that kind of speaks out to me on all three of those things is that little canvas piece, I guess, net or fabric that's sitting right underneath the middle of the cart. I mean, a lot of carts that you see out there, there's really nothing you can do with that space, because there's like other contraptions or even like wires that interfere with that area. And I'm just looking at that. That's like one of the biggest, that's one of the things that speaks out to me the most of that, because you can still utilize that space. I mean, you can put stuff down there like clothes or whatnot, or to me, what I'm thinking is, for pushing a cart, and like if you're going out and playing a 90-degree day. So I like to keep my bag as light as possible. So whether I'm carrying or even pushing a push cart, but if you're going out and playing like a 90-degree day, you can take like a nice little cooler and fit it right under there and just have it sit there. Because I know sometimes there's bag companies and cart companies that make the parts for it to attach to the cart, but you're really not getting enough space for, like, say, if you want to have 4 or 5 bottles of water or 6 cans of beer or whatever liquid you choose to drink out on the course. But right there, I mean, there's enough space to where you can, depending on what size or quantity amount of drinks you want to bring, you can utilize different sizes and different models of like coolers to put under there. That just like stood out to me, and that speaking on the the simplicity side and the space. And that's like one of the biggest things that's sticking out to me right now.
Yeah, the way we thought about that was, a lot of strollers have kind of that under compartment where, a mother will put a jacket or she'll put something like that. And, you just think about all the things that you need. The whole storage accessory and everything was thought about, what does a golfer need access to quickly and easily, and how can we kind of fill that need? I mean, there's a lot of other things that they want or kind of need or kind of want, I guess. Wants is better. The things that I think of that you use in around, your rangefinder, your phone, water bottle. You need to put your keys and your wallet somewhere, because you may need to grab your wallet, with a turn or something like that, to grab a hot dog or beer or something like that. So you don't want to put it deep in your bag and have to be fishing for it. So there's a closable pocket, keeps it secure. And then, like you said, kind of that area underneath, if you want to throw a sweater on, if you're playing early in the morning, you end up taking it off later, or you bring it late in the afternoon, you put it on because it gets cooler, you got an easy place. You don't have to kind of go fishing through your bag. That's kind of the way we thought about it, was just what are the easiest things that I need to access quickly, and let's build areas for those. And then I'm sure people will use them whatever way they want, but that's kind of what the purpose was for them. But hey, use it however makes you happy.
Just fill it up. That's all that matters.
Put a case of beer in there. I don't care.
It's
Sounds
pretty
great.
neat. I think Dante, that it was something that I just maybe missed or wasn't seeing too. And now that I come to think of it, I think that's like you guys, with your guys' design, is why you were able to do that space down there, because most other carts, they're folding mechanisms. And like you said, Dante, the wires to kind of keep everything together. It's kind of taking up that space in the golf industry. And it's really neat to, obviously with your brother's design background in the stroller industry is probably where that came from, but not many other golf carts have that kind of space down there, unless they're built in, like you said, Dante, with like the added in coolers and stuff like that, but it doesn't come standard. So that's pretty neat. And, I think it's just, it's fun to see that there's so many ways to use it too. And I think, whether it's, like you said, if you want to put a case down there or whatever you want to do, there's plenty of ways to use it. But I want to get back into the PGA show, which I think is pretty neat, and something that, you guys were awarded by Golf Digest as like one of the 14 coolest things down at the show this year. Talk us through that a little bit. You guys actually went the Kickstarter route kind of before the PGA show. Did the PGA show help you sell items on that Kickstarter, or was it, just talk us through the kind of decision to go through Kickstarter before getting to the PGA show, which most people use as kind of like a release point?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Kickstarter really came out of kind of a necessity to kind of prove the concept. We weren't, it costs, let's say it's a couple $100,000 to, design, development, build the tooling, everything else to bring, a golf push cart to market. And so, we were talking to angel investors and seed capital and other people last fall. And I think the biggest thing that we heard was, we need kind of proof of concept. We need, are people going to buy this thing? Do people like this thing? And so the Kickstarter was really kind of more about proving that concept. It wasn't really so much about raising money. It was kind of about just saying, hey, there's people out there that, think this push cart is worth it, and think it's cool. And we kind of started building momentum from there. And I think, and it really took off at the PGA show. We were on Golf Channel like the first day, and, they were kind of showing off the push cart, and then, Golf Digest did something with us. And then, it's kind of built just momentum through the spring. We were in the April issue of Golf Magazine, and, it's just kind of just these cool milestones one after another, just kind of, and I'm sure we'll talk about COVID, but, kind of COVID hit, and then everybody ran out of push cards and nobody could buy any. And so, people, I probably get 5 emails a day being like, hey man, I'm going on a golf trip next week. Can you give me a push cart? Like, can you send it to Bandon? Like, dude, there's no one that would want, no one in this world that wants to send you a push cart to Bandon next week. And I want you to take 100 pictures of it and tell me how awesome it was, and tell me how cool the sheep ranch was and everything else. And I want to hear all about it. But unfortunately, I hope you're going in July, and then we'll hook you up. And then we push you.
That's one of the things we touched on last episode, and it was like I kind of read the article and was like, you got to be kidding me. We're out of push carts. That's what we ran out of. We ran out of toilet paper and push carts. Like, come on. But it's fun to see golf kind of trending back in the direction of walking, whether by choice or by necessity. But it's neat to see, and I think it's kind of golf's been moving that way with the McKenzies, with the Joneses. With the Seamuses, just kind of that old school kind of vintage golf mentality coming back into the limelight a little bit. Talk us through that too a little bit. You kind of you partnered up with Seamus to make their hand stamped pieces part of your your Kickstarter bundle, one of your options on there. What was the thought process behind partnering up with Seamus and giving those guys kind of a little bit of recognition in what you guys do as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think Akbar and those guys just make really cool stuff. I mean, I'm a big user. I love their head covers. I love their ball markers. Their pouches and other things. I mean, honestly, we're just fans. I think they've built a great business. They're everybody that I've dealt with out there is just incredibly nice and just good-hearted people. And I think you see that. I mean, with Akbar and what they did, they shifted really quickly to making masks. They kind of paused golf production in the beginning of COVID and thought it was more important to do kind of the humanitarian mission. I think that just says a lot about what those guys are about. And I think that's just kind of the company that you'd want to be involved in. And so that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see it a lot, and I think in many industries, but especially the golf industry, when partnerships happen, it's usually because of what you just said. It's because we're fans of what other companies are doing, and as a golf fan, there's some cool stuff out there, and to be able to be on a platform to finally say, well, I'm not just going to buy their stuff. Like, let's partner up and let's do some really cool things. Is an awesome experience and kind of just another one of those milestones. I'm sure that you talked about that. It's like it's awesome to finally.
Yeah, and I think for us too. I mean, we're a little bit different than everybody else. So we're not really stepping on anybody's toes right now. So if we want to partner with Seamus or if we want to. Stitch Golf, these guys do some really cool stuff. The SL bags 1 and 2 are really cool. The Jones guys do some really cool stuff and are some great guys. And, there's just a lot of, I think, kind of artisans and innovators and people that kind of want to do things a little bit differently than it's always been done in golf. And, I really respect that. I think there's a lot of kind of new talent, new blood, and I hope that, they kind of can take their companies and, expand them and grow them and keep making really cool products. Mackenzie's in that area. I think the guys at Chaplin Bags make some really cool bags. There's just a lot of kind of innovative and innovation happening. And, hopefully we're kind of doing that in the pushcart area. But, we're fans. And so, if we're going to work with those companies and design a bag or do something cool like that, or, do some custom, graphic trolleys that we'll auction off for charity or something, we'll go to the Jones guys and be like, hey, make something really cool for this, this push cart and, make a unique bag and, decal it up and make it camo or something. And, we'll auction it off for charity or something like that. And those guys would be like, yeah, let's do it. That sounds awesome. And I think that's just kind of where golf is right now, that a lot of people are just, want to do stuff that's different and cool. And I think you look at that with Seamus and the Nike shoe. I mean, the Nike, shoe was super cool. I mean,
that
I wish they ordered
was one of the best
5,000
things to come out. Yeah, it was one of the best things to come out of the golf industry this year. It was so retro yet classic, and like you said, they far underordered what should have been produced.
Yeah,
because unfortunately I didn't get my hands on it.
No, I think I had them in my cart, and then I put the wrong CVV number in the credit card, and by the time it aired, they were already sold out. Awesome.
Wow.
So, more meant to be.
Yeah, it's really neat too, and I think we saw it down at the PGA show, Dante. It's just so cool. Like you said, there's so many guys that are just kind of busting out of the molds of what golf used to be and putting their own, whether it's artistic spin on it or like you said, with just all the kind of new bag companies out there. A big fan favorite of ours is Dormy Workshop and the work that they do with their head covers and stuff as well. We interviewed them and kind of got to know those guys, and the boys from Nova Scotia can put some cool spin on some head covers and bags and stuff like that, and it's all handmade there too, you know. So I mean, it's just it's a lot of people who are not only passionate for the golf industry but passionate in their own trades, in what they do, whether it's leather work or stamping or bag work or anything like that. You know, to be able to bring kind of their own handmade products to the forefront of the golf industry has been really neat to see, and I think it really to the forefront within the last year or two.
Have you guys thought about hickories, and getting yourselves a set of hickories to go with your Sunday carry bags and things like that? Is that a road that you guys are thinking about traveling down?
So I go to like the Philly show every year. It's a lot smaller, just like kind of for like the Philly community pretty much. And there's a guy there every year that has this huge barrel of old hickory sets, like not even sets, just clubs, but you can easily pick out probably a good, nice, 5 club set. And each year I walk over there, and each year I stand there over the barrel longer and longer each year, almost pulling the trigger, because I know there is actually a big hickory league and kind of community in the like, because I'm like right outside of Philly, in this like huge Philly area, and I know they get a lot of tournaments going and whatnot. So I've seen videos of it, and it seems like a lot of fun. So it's definitely on my radar of something I want to try down the road.
Yeah, I've got a 40th birthday upcoming, and I've hinted strongly to my wife that would be what I want for my birthday.
Some nice authentic
they're
hickory
really
sticks.
cool.
I tell you what, with the kind of forthcoming of the short course coming back around, hickory sticks have a very good possibility of making that turn of the century with the short course.
Yeah, I mean, like a place like Winter Park, Goat Hill Park with hickories, like that sounds just awesome. I mean, Winter Park especially. I mean, that place is just so pure, and it, you could play it, from the blue tees, and it's 2,600, 2,400 yards. Hickory's perfect distance. It would be a blast.
We experienced Winter Park for the first time in our lives this year, and I think I can honestly speak for Dante and myself when I say it completely changed the way we look at the game of golf. And it's incredible that a short course in the middle of a community that just recently got a facelift was able to do that. But so I mean, if our listeners, I know we have some listeners from down in the Winter Park area that we played with that week. I was fortunate enough to play in the Janela Skins match down there on a Friday afternoon, and boy, was it fun, man. The locals are so hospitable, and it's a fun place, fun time, great people. And yeah, I couldn't recommend it enough for people to go down and check it out.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I played with Janela on Tuesday, and kind of a John Ashworth thing, and the Link Soul kind of thing. And it was awesome. Loved it. Met some awesome people. And like you said, just, for $20, it's kind of perfect. We have this 9-holer in Austin called Hancock Park. It was the original Austin Country Club, and I'm dying to try and do something similar here. Austin is such an outdoors kind of city, and great craft beer scene and live entertainment, music. I think there's something to be done, kind of mixing all those into it. So
yeah, if
we get down that road, we can come back on the pod and talk about it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think Janela's style of golf he's got going down there, and whether it's his or whether it's just Winter Parks and it's what they do, I think that style of golf deserves to be played a lot more often in many cities across the country, and by anyone in any age. I think that was the other great thing about it. Before we move on, you saw kids out there having fun, you saw old folks having fun, and it's a course for everyone. And that was what was so special about it, is just that anyone could get out there on any given day, for $20 and have the time of their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what the future of golf should be. I mean, like the way that I think about, there's 100, there's thousands of, I don't know how many mini courses there are, but there's a lot in the United States. And, there's a lot of them that just don't distinguish themselves at all. And you've got a place like Winter Park that just stands out. It's just kind of it's different. And I think, what the guys are trying to do at the National Links Trust, what John Ashworth's done at Snow Hill Park, it's just got to kind of do something different with these munis. And I think that really, you guys out a little bit. You're never going to be Pine Valley. You're never going to be Augusta National or anything like that. But, you can take a lot of things that people love in your city, whether it's great craft beer or great porch or, some interesting greens and some fun architecture, and you can make a great golf course and a cool hang for $20 for $20.
I think you hit it spot on. Like, each city should embrace what it is and bring its city's kind of niche market to a muni, and make it the hangout spot, make it, your Friday afternoon, Saturday evening kind of spot. And that's, I think, where we invigorate the game of golf and bring this next generation into it. And, I think we have between us, our listeners, we all have that same kind of mentality and passion is like, let's not only, make golf fun again, but like, not to say it wasn't fun before, but like, let's make it so that everyone can do it. Even the people who've never picked up a club before. And I think that's what munis do. And I know that's what Winter Park does.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, whether it's a big community putting course with beer service or whether it's, Top Golf or whatever it is. I mean, I think, there's a ton of ways you can have fun playing golf. And you can kind of incorporate other cool aspects that people enjoy and people spend time at. And, sorry, that's just kind of my opinion, but it sounds like you guys kind of agree. And
we're down in that on our hands and knees begging for golf to go that direction for more often than So yeah, we're excited to go down that road anytime. But let's wrap up Walker Trolleys real quick and just kind of talk about what's next. Obviously you're a couple weeks away from production and fulfilling orders. What's that going to look like when people start getting their packages and getting them sent out to their front doors?
Hopefully it will be swift and quick and everyone will, have a tea time the next day and be so excited. Kind of after that, we kind of become a normal company. We have customer service. We're not in development anymore. We have customers. We have, people that we care about and people that we want to know have a wonderful experience. I mean, I think, I send out my cell phone number and my email to everybody that shoots the company an email, and you call me on my cell, and I get a lot of calls every day from customers, but I think going forward, it's just, let's put our head down. We're going to, create as many trolleys as we can or as we need to satisfy demand. And, kind of the future, we're looking at doing a non-folding version of the trolley. It'll probably look close to the exact same as the one that we had, that we'll market towards high-end resorts, private clubs, walking only golf courses. That's probably going to come out early next year, maybe at the PGA show or something like that. And then kind of outside of that, we've got kind of a line of custom storage bags that'll probably come out later this summer. And beyond that, I've got some ideas, but I probably shouldn't share them this early. And on a podcast, I'll save them. But I've got some other ideas. I mean, we consider ourselves, a golf lifestyle brand that makes equipment for walking golfers. So, when you kind of define yourself broadly like that, there's a lot of things you could do for walking golfers. And so, that's who we kind of think of as our core market. And that kind of leaves open lots of possibilities on the road. Who knows?
Yeah, no, that gets the hair on my arms tingling. That's it's exciting because that's what we love too. And it's exciting to see, for you guys. I think there's just I think the world's kind of your guys' oyster when you talk about getting into the resort courses and the high end clubs. And I think, the trunk of pretty much every common man out there as well, because I think once people start getting these in their hands and just using them, I think, obviously it's not the smallest thing on the market, but I think one thing we didn't touch on either is it's only 19 pounds. That's light for
Yeah.
for I guess for as big as golf cart trolleys or push carts can be. I think 19 pounds is light, and I think every golfer can, man or woman, can pick up 19 pounds because their bags probably weigh close to that, especially some cart bags out there, if not more than that. So, I think that's one thing we didn't touch on it, and it's definitely not the lightest on the market, I don't think, but it's sure not the heaviest. And I think once you get it out there in a performance aspect, I think it's going to outperform a majority of kind of your plastic carts out there, without a doubt.
We're not making any promises, under promise, over deliver. But we're excited about the trolley. We're excited to get it in people's hands. We think they're going to really like it.
Well, we're excited for you, and fingers crossed, and can only hope that once people get them in their hands, they'll appreciate them, they'll love them, and hopefully send you guys some good feedback to just keep getting better. I think every product can always get better in some way, shape, or form. So before we let you go, you talked about municipal courses and you talked about Winter Park. Winter Park aside and Goat Hill aside, what do you think is your favorite municipal course that you've played? And what's maybe a municipal course that you haven't played that you're dying to get on?
Favorite that I've ever played. Let's see. Well, Bethpage, for sure. I mean, it is technically a municipal, although it's hosted, 2 U.S. Opens and a PGA. So
still a muni.
I mean, it's a muni, so I mean, I guess that counts. So I was in Boston this past summer. And I got to play the front nine of George Wright, and I did not get to play the back nine because we ran out of time. So that's my answer. That's where I want to get to. I want to get back, and I want to play the back nine at George Wright in Boston.
That's cool.
That's where I want to go.
Now, what part of Boston, or I guess what part of Massachusetts is that in? Is that like kind of right outside the city, or where is that located for those people who might not know that area too well?
It's one of the oldest, most famous, city of Boston golf courses. It's right in Hyde Park, right there, kind of in the, I guess, kind of southern part of Boston, not too far. My brother-in-law, who designed the trolley, lives in kind of a little bit further south in Dedham, so it's pretty close to there. Not too far south of the country club. But kind of on the southern side of Boston.
Awesome. Well, excited to hopefully see you get back there sometime soon. And, once we can all get back to traveling and get back to a little bit of norm, where can people find you to maybe get their hands on, a Walker trolley and just follow along with your guys' journey within the game and to continue to see you guys get out on courses? Yeah,
absolutely. If you want to order a Walker trolley, if this podcast has inspired you and sold you and, you're really excited about it, then, Walker Trolleys, plural.com. The reason why we named it Trolleys is that's what they call push carts in Scotland, which, using the proper terminology, the Scots have been in the game, so, you can't call it a push cart. And then at Walker Trolleys on both Twitter and Instagram, you can find us there. We post pretty frequently on Instagram. Twitter, not quite as much, but we do post a lot there. And, sign up on our email list on our website, and you'll get all the updates, production updates, fun and interesting facts, and other fun tidbits.
You guys can hopefully pick one of those up and be out on the course this summer with a Walker trolley, and post your pictures, guys. Let them know how much you like it, and hopefully we can, get out with you and experience it for ourselves.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. This has been a pleasure. When we can get back out and travel again, I know you guys are up in the Northeast. Let's get together, go walk a course in Jersey, Maryland, Southern PA. Let's get out and go play together.
You got
I'm
yourself a
in.
deal there. Yep. Absolutely. Well, guys, that's Brad Payne, founding partner, CEO of Walker Trolleys. Brad, really appreciate the time. Really appreciate the chat, and excited to see this product hit the market officially, and see you guys just continue to make a splash within the golf industry, and continue to just innovate in the push cart or trolley market, and see you guys succeed well into the future. So thanks again for joining us.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. It's been fun. Next time we can actually get out and travel, let's go play some, whether it's in Southern PA, meet in the middle between you guys, or, somewhere around Philly. I hear there's some good courses, that Dalton can get on, through his junior golf connection.
Yeah.
That'd be fun, guys. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. You got yourself a deal, and we'll see you on the golf course soon, Brad. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the stuff. One shot at a time.